Hi, this is Leo Knighton Tallarico. It is March 13th, Friday, March 13th, 2015. And I'm speaking to you now, as I usually do, when there are some important planetary movements. And now, like middle of March through April, there's like a big portal opening. And that portal carries with it a lot of new consciousness, a lot of light, and a lot of motivation for all of us to get to a place in our consciousness and in our lives that's more aligned with the Aquarian age that we are moving into. So every time now that we get these big planetary movements, they help us to shed and let go of that which is attached to old belief systems, old paradigm, old ways of thinking that keep us locked in an old world that is dying now, and keeps us connected to the new world that is opening up. Now, those of you that have listened to me before know that I believe that we are on the cusp of an Aquarian age. I think that really the cusp began way back in the late 1700s. And now we're much, much closer to the actual beginning of that Aquarian age, which in my estimation, and of course different astrologers have different estimations, but in my estimation, at the very end of 2020, when Jupiter conjunct Saturn in Aquarius, at 0 degrees of Aquarius, I believe that that will be symbolically a time when we can say, when we look around us, the Aquarian age is here. It doesn't mean it'll be all settled in and all the things that it's meant to be will have been established, but I think we'll have an idea or a sense that we are in the beginning of the actual Aquarian age. I say that the cusp started back in the late 1700s because there are 3 transformational planets that are kind of emissaries of the new age. And those planets are Uranus, discovered in 1781, Neptune, discovered in 1846, and Pluto, discovered in 1930. So when those planets were discovered, it's almost like the universe is saying, come forward, it's time to come forward, and beginning to have the awakenings into the new age. Uranus was the first to be discovered in 1781, and at that time, the American Revolution and the French Revolution. And that's exactly what Uranus is meant to give us. And that's an awakening outside of the old box of kings and queens or authority figures rule our lives as human beings. That beginning of the Aquarian age, and Uranus, by the way, is the ruler of Aquarius, the ruling planet of Aquarius. And it showed us the way into the Aquarian age, the beginning steps into the Aquarian age, and that's to break out of controls by authority figures that tell us what our reality will be and how we will lead our lives. So, Aquarius or Uranus awaken us to our strength as individual human beings capable of taking care of this earth and our human family without privileged people or authorities telling us what our reality is or what our life should be. So that was the very beginning of the Aquarian age. And then after that, every time that Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto make an aspect to one another, that gives us another wave of transformation. So for instance, in the late 1800s, Neptune and Pluto made a conjunction with each other, and they're the furthest out planets that we've discovered so far. And when that happened, it brought on the 20th century. And in the 20th century, we all came closer together through commerce, through transportation, and through communication systems. It was almost like we knew that we weren't just tribal in our own little families and tribes or even nations, but that we were all connected all over the earth. That's what the Neptune-Pluto conjunction did. Then Uranus and Pluto in 65 and 66 brought on the 60s revolution. And they let us know that we didn't have to be controlled by a system that was unfair and corrupt, and that we human beings could begin to take over our planet and our human family. Then in 1992 to 1994, Uranus and Neptune made a conjunction. And that conjunction brought on the computer and the internet revolution, as well as the New Age revolution. And now, from 2012 to 2015, Uranus and Pluto, who were conjunct when the 60s revolution started, are making a square to one another during that time period. And they have 7 passes with one another, 7 squares, exact squares with one another from 2012 through 2015. And now we're up to the last pass, the 7th pass. And it's just a few days from when I'm talking. This is March 13th, and on March 16th, Uranus and Pluto make their final square to one another. And that square is a part of this portal that's opening. But there's more to this portal that's opening than the Uranus-Pluto final exact pass. On the 20th of March, which is the spring equinox, there will be a total solar eclipse, new moon, at the very end of Pisces, meaning like 29 degrees of Pisces. There's 30 degrees in a sign. So that means that that day, which is always an important day, it's a turning point in our lives because it brings on a new season. It'll be even more important than usual because of this total solar eclipse that's going to happen. And not only will it be important for the day, that day and the days surrounding that event, but it also will provide a signature, so to speak, for the entire spring season. And because an eclipse falls on that day, it means it's going to be a quite powerful, transformational spring season, 2015. Now, about a year ago, I was speaking to you about another portal that was opening, although I might not have used those words at that time, but that's because the Grand Cross was coming and the eclipses at the same time. And those of you that are paying attention know how intense your lives were that springtime and early summer, and how much changed in the actual world. So now we get our next portal opening now. And there's going to be a lot changing in your personal lives, in your consciousness, and events that are going to happen in the greater world. So we have that solar eclipse on the equinox. Now that will be followed on April 4th by another eclipse. And this eclipse will be a total lunar eclipse, full moon. All lunar eclipses are full moons and solar eclipses are new moons. So it'll be a total lunar eclipse full moon in Aries Libra. I say both signs because a full moon is when the sun is opposite the moon. So the sun will be in Aries and the moon will be in Libra, and it'll be a total lunar eclipse on April 4th. And Uranus and Pluto will be inside that full moon, meaning Uranus and Pluto will be very close to the degrees of the full moon and will be a part of the signature of that full moon. So it'll make a T-square. A T-square is like 2 planets opposite each other, remember the sun and moon, and then 1 square. So it makes like a triangle, like a T-square. And it'll be the sun in Aries conjunct Uranus, very close to one another, opposite the moon in Libra, and square Pluto in Capricorn. The only difference between this configuration and the cardinal Grand Cross, as opposed to T-square, is that Jupiter was in Cancer, which gave it 4 legs, a square, as opposed to a triangle. Still very powerful on a T-square. So we're going to have a lot of change that happens during that time period. Then, on the 11th of April, Jupiter, which is a planet that has a lot of energy, a lot of like raising spirits energy, it'll be conjunct on April 11th. And then that will be followed on April 18th by a new moon in Aries. So if you look at from the middle of March until April 18th, that pretty much, in my estimation, is this portal time, portal opening time. Does that mean that all the events that are going to happen, that are a part of this new phase, are all going to happen between March 15th and April 18th? No. That's just the time that things will be churning and very intense on a consciousness level. Some events will happen at that time. A lot will feel like it's moving. New energies coming in. Old energies we can't hold on to anymore. That's what's going to happen during that time period. Then, on the 18th, that's almost like, okay, we've gone through this portal, now let's move forward. And then that moving forward, don't forget it's Aries, which is very much about moving forward. Aries new moon on the 18th. That moving forward will then create many more events in our personal lives and in the world that will be in conjunction with the changes and the transformation that we're meant to go through in our world. And again, this portal opening is going to make us one step closer to this new age that we're moving into. And you know, more important than the timing of a new age is what we're doing inside of ourselves. Remember, the old age is an old paradigm. It's an old way of seeing ourselves and the world that we live in. When an old age happens, you know, the society that we're in then tells us what our reality is. And it, in a way, it programs us into thinking a certain way about ourselves, about life, about the way we're supposed to be. It gives us a set of rules and regulations for living. That's what a paradigm does. Now as things are shifting and changing, with a new age blowing in, it's like here comes the new energies telling us, no, there's new ways to be as a human on the earth. And we're trying to breathe them in, take them in. And as we take in this new light, these new breezes of fresh, new waves of consciousness and ways of living on the earth, they come up against the block. That block is the old programming, the old ways of thinking, the rules and regulations we feel we have to live up to, the ways we see ourselves that are really not authentic to how we'll be in the new world. And as those waves come in and hit the blocks, that's when things happen that disrupt our lives, that disrupt our relationships, that disrupt our jobs, the places we live. In the 60s, when we had a big wave of consciousness change and letting go of the old ways through women's rights, African American rights, sexual liberation, seeing the world and the system for what it really was instead of just going along with the rules and regulations. When those things happened and came into our world, these awakenings, it caused all sorts of turmoil, war in Vietnam, riots on the streets, marriages were threatened, jobs didn't feel right anymore. And we knew, you know, that we had to bring in these new worlds, but we were frightened by the change that was there because we had to like let go of things that made us feel as if we were secure, whether it's an old relationship, a job, or whatever it is, or even just the way of like living on the earth. Just as an example, a minor one, you know, before the 60s revolution, you know, women were supposed to be virgins according to society's way of looking at things. And men were supposed to like be respectful of that. And then all of a sudden with the sexual revolution, you know, women realized that they could be as free as men. They didn't have to be chained to a certain role around sexuality. So this was causing a lot of difficulty for people because when you're thinking things in one way, then all of a sudden you're opening up to a new way, even if it's something that's enjoyable, it's still hard to make that adjustment. So now the same thing is kind of happening. And you can see some people are going a little faster with taking in the new ways than other people. So for instance, gay and lesbian and transsexual and bisexual rights are all getting stronger throughout our nation. The legalization of marijuana is getting more and more popular and strong across our nation. Some people have been ready for that from day one in their consciousness. Other people have been very slow to take that in. Some of them don't even feel it's right to have these kind of rights, marriage rights, for instance, for gay and lesbians, or marijuana to be legal. And of course, I'm not saying that those things necessarily, like marijuana being legal, have to do with what the New Age consciousness is, but I'm just trying to give an example of new things that are happening that are awakening us to new ways of living on the earth. So as these new waves come in, you know, we are adjusting. And the way we adjust is we have to release the old ways. Because the old ways, it's not about right and wrong so much. It's more about like when you change from autumn to winter, it's like you can't wear the same clothes anymore. You have to change the way you dress. You have to change the way that you work with your car. You know, you got to start up in the morning perhaps. So it's like, it's just that it's a new season, it's a new world, and we have to adjust to that new world the best that we can. So there's this new portal opening, and it's going to be, like I said, from the middle of March to about the 18th of April. And then a lot of events will happen after that. Do you remember when I was speaking with you, those that remember the talk I gave back on the Grand Cross about a year ago, that I said the next 18 months from then, March, April of 2015, the next 18 months are going to be like such that at the end of the 18 months, you're going to look back and say, God, it's so different now than it was 18 months ago. So as I speak to you now, we have about 6 more months before we get to that 18-month marker. And I know a lot of you will look at your personal lives and say, wow, my personal life has really changed in those 18 months from March, April 2015 to autumn of 2014 to autumn of 2015. And a lot of you, I think, could say that your lives have changed appreciably already, and we still have another 6 months or so to go. So with those extra 6 months to go, looking at your lives changing, a lot of it will just be like a continuation of what's been changing for the last year. But for some of you, it'll be even new changes that are coming over these next 6 months. And the best way to handle that, all these changes that are coming, is to trust the process. Trust that the process is going to take you to who you really are, stronger sense of authenticity, stronger sense of purpose, and living your life in accordance with principles that will guide us for the Aquarian age. Like, for instance, all men and women are created equal, just like our Bill of Rights says. That's something that the Aquarian age, because Aquarius is about that. Everyone is equal. No one's any better. No one deserves any more privilege than anyone else. So everybody knows that, okay, so maybe wealthy people or people that were born into privilege, they think they're better than someone else. But you may think that an artist is better than a janitor, or that a baseball player and a celebrity in Hollywood is better than someone who's not. Or maybe you feel the opposite. Maybe you feel a common person is superior to those people. It's like that's all got to go. It's like no more anybody better than anyone else intrinsically. I mean, I can have a talent that's greater than yours, and you can have a talent that's greater than mine, but that doesn't make me better than you. That just means that there's some things that I do well that help me satisfy my function and purpose on the earth. It's the idea that some are intrinsically, inherently better than somebody else. That's what has to go. And if anything that you have like that inside of you, it's good to work on it, to release it as best as you can. And in the greater world, what that looks like, all equal, is that there's no country any better than any other country. We're all good countries, inherently. And so, in the last age, we've had empires. Many empires, starting with the Roman Empire. We've had Austro-Hungarian. We've had the British Empire. We've had many, many empires. Ottoman Empire. And so we're letting go of the idea of empires because those empires actually put certain cultures ahead of other cultures. So in this new world, it's going to be diversity in unity. Everything that's different, everyone that's different, different lifestyles, different ways of being, different cultures, different races, different nations, different sexual orientations, regardless. All equal, accepting the diversity, honoring the diversity, but the diversity is brought into unity. And when you look at the world that we're living in, you can see how far we have to go, apparently. Instead of nations, for instance, like honoring each other's different ways, we judge and say, you ought to be doing it our way. You know, we have capitalism and we have democracy, and if you're not doing that, you know, we need to whip you into shape or educate you so that you can live your life differently and more like me. So that attitude will end as we become diversity in unity through time. So let's take a look at the world itself, outside of our personal lives, to look what might happen during this portal that's opening and beyond. You know all the things that happened last year around the Cardinal Grand Cross and around that portal opening. Remember there was the Ebola scare, and there was the Ukraine-Russia issue, and there was ISIS becoming stronger and stronger, and there was Ferguson, Missouri, and the African-American riots that happened because of the killing of an African-American there, and then one happened in New York the same way. Those are just a few of the big events that happened during the Grand Cross and just after. And we can expect more big events to happen, but events that, again, go along with this idea that all of us are one human family with many different ways of being. Everything that's going to happen now is going to help us to get to that place. It's going to help us to get to the place of like honoring the earth and our environment and what we have to do to get that better and clean and healed. It's going to be about people that suffer on this earth because of an economic system that's not fair and changing that economic system. It's about ending wars that are about one nation or culture feeling that it deserves more, or that it's better, or that it has more power than another. All of those things need to change for us to develop this Aquarian age. Remember I said before that when new light, new consciousness comes in, it hits up against the old consciousness. So as these new lights come in and these new ways of being, like I've been speaking of, those people, those nations, those cultures that are not taking in this new light, have a hard time taking this new light, it will cause more turmoil, more conflict. So one of the places, and of course I've talked about it before, that the turmoil is important to look at what's going to happen in the place, is the Middle East. The Middle East was the place that contained many of our first civilizations and where the major religions, organized religions, were birthed. And that place, you can see, is filled with turmoil. Last year, with the war on Gaza, with the trying to figure out the Palestinian issue, with ISIS' birth, with the Arab Spring that's been happening over the last several years, you can see that the Middle East is a very important place. And it will continue to be important. A lot of what's going to happen in this spring and summer, and for the next 6 months before we get to that autumn, are going to be in the Middle East. Right now, just a few days before that spring equinox, on the 17th of March, there's going to be an election in Israel for who's going to be the prime minister or the leader of the country. And it's an important election because if Netanyahu continues to be the prime minister, the leader of that country, you can almost be guaranteed that there's war coming with Iran, and there's more wars that are going to happen between Israel and other countries in the Middle East. If someone else is elected, war could still come, but the odds would be much less that that would happen. So that's just a few days before this eclipse and the spring equinox. Then a few days after, on the 24th of March, there's a timeline for coming to a fundamental agreement with Iran around its nuclear program. That's really important too. It's so important that Netanyahu spoke in front of the American Congress against normal protocol, against normal respect for our president, and spoke out against the agreement that's being put together with Iran. So you can see, and that was like March 4th, I believe. So you can see how things are happening in the Middle East as this portal's opening. Important events are happening. And what happens with that agreement with Iran, what happens with that election in Israel, are going to have a lot to do with how things unfold in the Middle East and in our world. We can only pray and hope and make conscious intention in our meditations for there to be a graceful, peaceful way to get into this diversity and unity world. But, you know, I can't be guaranteed of that, and neither can you. So we need to keep a close eye on it. If you look at the empire that's running the world now, a lot of the world, it's Western Europe and the United States have an empire. And of course, a lot of the world is governed by the economy that empire has put together. So you can expect that the economy is going to really be, and the stock market, are really going to be challenged over the next 6 months or so. There's no way that this new world of equality and sharing can happen under the current economic system. There are just too many people that starve. What did I hear the other day? That 1% of the population controls 50% of the wealth of this world. 50% of the wealth of this world from 1% of the people. How can that possibly work long term? I mean, it works for a few people that are privileged, but it can't work for the people of the earth. And of course, when there's terrorism and there's wars and there's robberies and things like that, I don't think it's being too simplistic to say that a lot of those things happen because of the inequities in the world financially. A lot of the anger that people have is because they don't have what it takes to live decently. So we have to change these inequities if we want to develop a world that not only is fair, but that works and doesn't have so much violence in it. So the Middle East is going to be an important place to look, and the economy will be another important place to look, and there'll be other places and events that are going to happen in the world, like Ukraine, Russia. That's like a conflict between that Western civilization and Russia. And it's going to be important to see how that all plays out. And of course, we know we have nuclear weapons all over this earth. So we have to work out these problems. It's too dangerous to have hateful enemies on the earth. It's way too dangerous. So we need to work out these problems, and we will work out these problems as we move into an Aquarian age. Back when the Grand Cross happened last April through late June, I commented on how that first Grand Cross was right to the United States sun. The United States sun at 13 plus degrees of Cancer, and the 4 planets making the Grand Cross were at 13 plus degrees of cardinal signs. That told me that the United States is ripe for immense transformation. The next 2 eclipse seasons, autumn of 2014 and spring now of 2015, the eclipses again, like that second one this year on April 4th, the Aries-Libra one, that's going to be right at the United States sun again. It's Saturn and its sun, because the United States has Saturn square sun in its natal chart of July 4th, 1776. And so that's 3 times, 3 eclipse seasons, the United States sun-Saturn aspect is closely focused. And so the United States is going through big transformation, will continue to go through big transformation, and that means that being an empire and a superpower cannot last. It doesn't mean that we're bad guys, we're bad people. It just means that we've done like so many peoples have done during this last age, and that's take our power and use it over others to build an empire and to take more for ourselves. We're no different than any other peoples or empire, but it's time for it to end. And it's time for us to come into equality and diversity and unity. And the universe will help us as it helps us change seasons from one age to another age. So be prepared now to take the ride of this portal opening. World events will happen, events in your own life that will help you to move into this new world, that will help you to change your consciousness, your belief systems, to help you to be not only better for the world, but better for yourself. Does it feel right to be in a relationship that you're with the wrong person? Does it feel right to be on a job that you only go to make money that doesn't feel fulfilling at all? It's like these are the kind of things that are going to change, because for you to lead an authentic life, fulfilling a function or a purpose in your world that fits into the wholeness of our world and its needs, These are the things that are going to happen for you. The only difficult part is sometimes it's very painful to release and to let go of that which gives us security, even if it's not good for us. I remember when I quit smoking 30 years ago or so. I mean, that was bad for me. But I remember, like, it was like having a friend with me that I didn't want to let go of. It was like really difficult to let go of the smoking, not just the physical part, but the psychological connection I had to that cigarette. It was bad for me. It was horrible for me. It wasn't right for me, and it certainly wasn't right for me anymore. But I wanted to hold on to it for dear life because the change scared me, to not have that friend with me all the time. And the other things that we're changing in our life, it's the same thing. It's going to be hard to let it go, but trust me, the things that you're letting go of, the universe is helping you let go of because it wasn't good for you, and what's coming your way is going to be better for you. So get ready for change. Change is on your doorstep, and it's all going to be for the betterment of you and for the world that we live in. So thank you very much. Till next time, this is Leo, Knighton Tallarico.